Hello and welcome. You are listening to Pint Size Therapy, where we explore all things related to mental health healing, personal growth and development, emotional wellness, and the human experience in pint-sized bites. I am your host, Dr. Aletha Clark, a licensed psychotherapist, certified hypnotherapist, and master addiction counselor, and I am happy to have you here with me today as you embark on your mental wellness journey. While I appreciate you tuning in, don't forget this podcast is informational only and is not a substitute for seeking out your own mental health counseling with a licensed professional. So join me as we jump into today's episode. Hello and welcome back. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Pint Size Therapy. As we begin today, I want you to imagine for a moment that you're standing in front of a mirror. You've got your professional blazer on, your laptop in your bag, maybe your phone buzzing with texts from family or coworkers. And over all of that, you've got a cape draped across your shoulders. It's invisible to the world, but you know it's there. It's heavy, it's worn, and it's weighing you down. It represents all the roles you expected to carry: mother, partner, daughter, employee, boss, caregiver, community leader, activity planner, and friend. And somehow, you're supposed to do it all flawlessly. That, my friends, is what we call the Superwoman Syndrome. You know, the term was coined in the 1980s by Dr. Hansen Shaevitz. In her book, The Superwoman Syndrome, she described it as the pressure that women feel that they need to do it all, that they need to be it all, to succeed in their careers, raise perfect families, maintain a picture-perfect home, look good while doing it, and somehow still have energy left to nurture everyone else. It's not just ambition. You know, ambition is actually healthy. This is expectation that's stacked on expectation to the point where burnout becomes inevitable. You know, let's think about the mom. You know, she wakes up at 5 a.m. to get a workout in. She gets the kids ready for school. She makes breakfast and lunches for the kids and the partner. She rushes to work. She performs at 110% and leaves work only to start her second shift because it doesn't stop there. They still need to run the kids to all of their after-school activities, plan and cook dinner, do homework, maybe have to help aging parents, keep the house in order, and still say yes to community commitments, the PTA meetings, or friends who need a listening ear. And at the end of the day, she collapses in bed. She's exhausted, only to wake up and do it all over again. That's the cape. That's the syndrome. So where does this pressure come from? Why do so many women feel like they have to put on this invisible cape every day? You know, part of it is actually our cultural messaging. For decades, especially starting in the late 20th century, society sent messages to women, and these were mixed messages. It told them that you can have it all: career, family, relationships, personal wellness. And while that sounds empowering, the unspoken expectation was that you should have it all, and you should do it all perfectly. The glossy magazine covers, the TV shows, the social media highlight reels, they've painted a picture of women who has the thriving career, the spotless home, the well-mannered kids, the strong relationship, and still looks radiant and pulled together. But no one talks about the emotional toll or the lack of structural support. The reality is those images leave out the stress, the missed sleep, the breakdowns in the bathroom, and the silent exhaustion. And when women can't live up to that impossible standard, They don't just feel tired, they feel like failures. Another root cause lies in our family upbringing. Maybe you grew up in a household where love was tied to performance, where your worth was measured by how responsible, capable, or helpful you were, where being the responsible one or the strong one was the only way to receive validation, to earn approval, affection, or even basic respect. And over time, that script became automatic. If I don't hold it all together, who will? What will my people think of me if I can't? And then there's the layer of societal expectations. Media often glamorizes women who can juggle everything without breaking a sweat. We don't see the breakdown behind closed doors. Many women, carry out a deep fear of being judged as lazy, selfish, and inadequate. If they dare to set boundaries or let something drop, it shows up in quiet thoughts like, if I don't volunteer for this, people will think I don't care. Or if my house isn't perfect, they'll think I'm not a good mother. Or even if I rest, people will think I'm weak or lazy. This fear of judgment often walks hand in hand with the worry of not being good enough. Even if no one says it out loud, many women have an inner critic whispering, "You should be doing more. You're not measuring up." And that voice, it doesn't go away once a task is done. It just raises the bar higher. Because unfortunately, that high bar, it's set in the mommy groups you attend or belong to online that tell you you should raise your child this way, or you should only feed your child these foods. And even in the social media comments who critique everything you do and say, because apparently we're all doing it wrong. And finally, there's the guilt for resting, guilt for asking for help, guilt for not meeting every expectation, guilt for not doing it the way the other moms are doing it, guilt for choosing yourself when others are asking for more. For so many women, saying no or even pausing feels like letting someone down. And guilt can become such a heavy chain that it keeps the cape firmly in place, even when the body and mind are begging for relief. So when you put all of this together, the cultural pressures, the family upbringing, the societal judgment, fear of not being enough, and guilt, you can see how easy it is to slip into this superwoman syndrome. It's not a personal weakness, it's a pattern that's been reinforced at every level of life, and it keeps that cape firmly in place. But the biggest kicker of the superwoman syndrome is that the expectations are impossible to meet. They're designed for failure because no human being can be everything to everyone all the time. No human being can be perfect and 100% put together all day, every day. Yet many women still push themselves to try. They measure worth in productivity, in sacrifice, and how many people they can keep afloat. And when they inevitably fall short, because of course they will, the inner critic comes roaring in with shame and guilt. It's like running a marathon on a treadmill. You're sweating, you're exhausted, but you're not actually moving forward. If you can relate to what we talked about so far, maybe you're wondering whether this might be you. Maybe you have been experiencing some of the common symptoms of the Superwoman Syndrome. Maybe you've been feeling some chronic exhaustion, even after you rest, feeling guilty for resting or saying no, anxiety, being overwhelmed when you can't meet every expectation, that feelings of need to be perfect, constantly raising the bar higher, suppressing your own needs and emotions, or even your health for the sake of others. Having some memory issues or poor concentration because you're juggling too much. So you're being really forgetful. And even a deep sense of never feeling like you're enough. The consequences of living under the Superwoman Syndrome are not just emotional, they're physical. As we know, chronic stress wreaks havoc on the body. It can lead to things such as high blood pressure, heart disease, migraines, a weakened immune system, muscle tension, aches and pains, weight fluctuations, and even sleep problems. Mentally, it fuels anxiety, depression, irritability, and resentment. And perhaps most dangerously, it erodes our identity. When we live in the Superwoman Syndrome long enough, we often lose sight of who we really are outside of the roles we perform. Think about it. When someone asks, "Who are you?" how do you respond? For many women, the first answers are roles. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm a manager. I'm a caretaker. But those are the hats you wear, not the essence of who you are. The Superwoman Syndrome trains women to define themselves by what they do, not by who they are. And over time, the authentic self, the part of you that has unique passions, quirks, creativity, and dreams, it gets buried underneath layers of responsibility. And this can show up in small but telling ways. You don't remember the last time you did something just because you enjoyed it, not because it was productive. When someone asks about your hobbies or passions, you sometimes draw a blank. You feel uneasy or guilty taking time for yourself because it feels selfish. You struggle to answer the question, what do I need? What do I want? And that disconnection can be painful because when your worth is tied to constant doing, you start to believe that without performing, you have no value. Rest feels like failure. Stillness feels like emptiness. This erosion of identity doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow, quiet unraveling. One day you wake up and realize you've been living for everyone else, and you no longer recognize the women in the mirror. You've been the dependable one, the strong one, the capable one, but you've lost sight of the joyful one, the playful one, the dreaming one. And that loss has ripple effects. Without a strong sense of identity, women can feel isolated, resentful, or even invisible. They may stay in unhealthy jobs or relationships because they don't know who they'd be without them. They may silence their own needs until their body forces them to listen through illness, burnout, or breakdown. This is why the Superwoman Syndrome is so insidious. It doesn't just exhaust the body, it erodes the soul. But here's the good news. Your identity is not gone forever. It may be buried, but it can be rediscovered, like uncovering an old photograph in a dusty attic. Pieces of your true self are still there, waiting for space, waiting for attention, and waiting for love. Let's take a pause here. If you're in a place where you can pause for just a moment, I want to invite you into a little reflection. I want you to take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now close your eyes if you can and imagine yourself gently setting down that cape. Feel its weight leave your shoulders. Imagine placing it on a hook, knowing you can pick it up later if you choose, but for now, you're free. Now ask yourself, without the cape, without the roles, who are you? Think back to a time when you felt most like yourself, before all the responsibilities, before all the expectations. What were you doing? What brought you joy? What made you feel alive? Hold that image for a moment. Let yourself remember her, the you that exists beyond the to-do list, beyond the demands. Now ask yourself gently, What small step could I take this week to reconnect with her? Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's painting, maybe it's giving yourself permission to rest without guilt. Take one more deep breath, and when you're ready, come back. Now, I want to go deeper into something very important. While all women can experience the Superwoman Syndrome, research shows that Black women often experience it at a more intense and complicated level. Dr. Cheryl Wood-Giscombé in 2010 did research on the Superwoman Schema, and it's groundbreaking here. She found that many Black women feel a cultural obligation to present themselves as strong, self reliant, and emotionally contained. And this comes from a long history of systemic racism, discrimination, and intergenerational trauma. For centuries, strength was not just celebrated, it was a survival mechanism. Black women were often expected to shoulder both racial and gender burdens, caring for their families, communities, and themselves in a society that frequently denied them support or recognition. They were expected to be everything to everyone, to not show emotion, and to never be seen as vulnerable. This creates what Woods-Giscombe described as the superwoman role. And while it can foster resilience and was necessary for survival, it also creates chronic stress, suppressed emotions, and resistance to asking for help. It's the cultural script of I don't have the luxury of falling apart. But here's the truth: strength without rest becomes a cage, and wearing the cape for too long can cost mental health, physical health, and spiritual peace. So now that we understand and possibly even recognize Superwoman Syndrome in ourselves, how do we begin to hang up the cape? So the first step is that we name it. Recognizing that you are caught in the Superwoman Syndrome is the first step to loosening its grip. We need to give ourselves permission to rest. We need to recognize that rest is not laziness. Rest is resistance. It's reclaiming your humanity from a system that profits off of your exhaustion. We need to also set boundaries. Saying no is not rejection, it's protection. Every yes should be aligned with your values and not with guilt. We need to learn to trust people and let trusted people in. Share your struggles. Let yourself be cared for, even in small ways. Also, reaching out for therapy and support. Having a safe space to process these pressures, especially for Black women, navigating layered cultural expectations. This can be life changing. So sit with someone who can hold space and allow you to be vulnerable. And maybe the last thing we need to do is to redefine success. Shift from measuring worth by productivity to measuring it by alignment, by joy, by authenticity. So let me ask you, what would it feel like to take off the cape, even just for a day? What would it mean to say, I am enough, even if I'm not doing everything? The Superwoman Syndrome may be widespread, but it doesn't have to define you. Your worth is not in how much you can adore, it's in your humanity, your softness, your dreams, and your being. So if this episode and what we talked about today resonates with you, I encourage you to take one step this week. Choose one responsibility you can let go of, delegate, or postpone. Notice how it actually feels. And if you need support on this journey, whether it's through therapy, coaching, or simply connecting with a safe community, don't be afraid to reach out. You don't have to carry the world alone. Remember, every superhero takes off their capes. and you are allowed to rest. So until next time, take care of yourself. As always, thank you for joining me today on Pint-Sized Therapy. If you found this conversation meaningful, I invite you to leave me a comment, like, subscribe, and share with your family and friends. Come visit my website at pintsizedtherapy.com and my Etsy shop at pintsizedtherapy.etsy.com, where you will find resources to accompany our various discussions and encourage you to continue your wellness journey. Once again, I am Dr. Aletha Clark. Until next time, remember to protect your peace and take care of your mental health.